to represent. So food security programs would be, like food banks, Meals on Wheels, any kind of food access program, SNAP, EBT. Accessing markets would be like food hubs, retail, wholesale. And then getting started in farming is really finance, access to capital, access to land, infrastructure. And then education, which could be college level, elementary, and everything in between, to master gardeners, to just wanting to help get the word out about eating local food. So if you could pick one of those, put your name, one, and if, like in my case, one, I'm going to be in getting started farming. So I'd be 3, Stephanie Coffee. So if you need help, you want to go over renaming, Catherine?
Absolutely, yeah. So everyone, if you scroll over to your box with your picture in it, there's 3 dots that should come up. You can click on that, and one of the options should be rename. And then click on rename and go ahead and put your name in and your pronouns if you want, and what group you would like to be in, 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Thank you, Catherine. All right. So a quick announcement. Oops. Am I not? Is Viva Farms is unable to be here today. They've had a tragic loss of one of their staff members this past week. So our thoughts and prayers are with them as they're really dealing with this difficult situation. So just wanted to let everybody know. And I'm sharing the agenda today. And we're going to go quick, do introductions of those who helped put the session together. So I'll start. My name is Steph Coffey. I'm the director of the San Juan Islands Agricultural Guild, and we are 501c3. Our mission is to foster a vibrant, resilient, and sustainable food system in San Juan County, Washington. Sarah, you want to go next?
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Pope. I am market manager for the San Juan Islands Food Hub and also on the board of the San Juan Islands Agricultural Guild.
Catherine, you want to go next?
Yeah, my name is Catherine Ingman, and I am the program manager for the Lopez Food Share, which is our new Lopez Island Food Bank.
Great. Wendy?
Good morning. I'm Wendy Waxman Kern, and the 4-H coordinator out of WSU Extension for San Juan County.
Great. And then we'll quickly have the panelists introduce themselves, their name, their role in their organization, and the organization name. So Alex, you want to start first?
Yeah, I'm Alex Smith with Sustainable Connections. I'm the Food and Farming Outreach Coordinator and the Food to Bank On Coordinator.
Kristen?
Hi, I'm Kristen Rezabek, and I'm the Health and Nutrition Coordinator for San Juan County Health and Community Services. And I wear many hats, but in this role, I'm the SNAP Ed Program Coordinator for our county.
Anna?
Hi, my name is Anna, and I'm a Swinomish tribal member, and I work for the Community Environmental Health Program as an associate, as well as a youth outdoor educator.
And Mike?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike. I work for Swinomish Indian Tribal Community. I'm the coordinator for the Community Environmental Health Program and certified wild plants and medicine educator.
So thank you all for being here today on a Sunday morning. So I really appreciate it and very grateful for your time. Is the poll all done?
No, would you like me to launch it?
Yes, please. Okay. So we'd like to know where you're from, have a sense of who's in the room. So I know a lot of you wear many hats, but if you could pick one area that you feel best represents you. And eater is kind of a catch-all if you feel like none of these fit you. So I'll give a few seconds for everybody to fill that out. All right, looks pretty good. So do I end poll or do you guys end it?
I can end it.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. Would you like me to share the results, Steph?
Yeah, that'd be great. So we have a fairly good representation except for markets. Looks like only one person, but I think that's, at least we have a sense of who's here. So thank you. Thank you for taking that. Next on our list is, to start our panel discussions. So Alex, if you would like to start, that'd be great. And just cue me when you need me to go to the next screen.
Great. Thanks, Steph. So yeah, I'm Alex from Sustainable Connections. My title is Food and Farming Outreach Coordinator. It's a little bit of a catch-all, especially after 2020 and things shifting around a lot, but I want to give just a brief summary of the things that we do as an organization, and then kind of narrow down to the food and farming program, my role specifically, and then kind of tie a bow on it and talk about how it relates to food equity and justice, which is a much bigger conversation that we can continue. Sustainable Connections as an organization is a nonprofit founded in 2003 as a business membership network. So you can think about it as sort of like a chamber of commerce, but we only work with independent, locally owned businesses and promote sustainable practices. We work in the 4-county region of Whatcom, Skagit, San Juan, and Island counties. We have 5 different program areas. So we have Think Local First, which is kind of the baseline, just encouraging people to buy from these local independently owned businesses, keep money in the community. The Food and Farming program that we'll go into a lot more, supporting local farmers and food businesses through connections, promotions, and education. Green building and smart growth. So working with contractors to find efficient and reusable or recyclable materials, working with municipalities to create policies that create sustainable communities like zoning, regulation, those kinds of things. Energy efficiency and renewables. So this is more retrofitting, performing low cost energy audits and cost estimates for improving businesses' energy efficiency, everything from insulation to solar panels. Towards zero waste, currently we're focused on single-use plastics, reducing those, and then food waste. We have a food recovery initiative that takes food that would otherwise be wasted and brings it to nonprofits and other communities experiencing hunger. So we've got a strong partnership with the Lummi Nation, the Miracle Food Network, Northwest Youth Services, just a couple examples of where that food's going. And then finally, we have Cloud Mountain Farm Center, which we merged 2 years ago, roughly. And they do nursery production, home garden education, orchards demonstration, and also have a farm incubator program. And I say they, but it's really we. I'm still adjusting to the language of the merger that we're one organization. So within food and farming, kind of the most broad program that we have is Eat Local First, and you can see the logo on your screen. And I'm a minimalist when it comes to PowerPoint, so I just left that as yeah, the catch-all. But yeah, so it's ultimately to connect producers to buyers. So connecting farmers with restaurants, with grocers, with food hubs, with markets, and then also to the general public and helping those consumers find local food. And the basis of the program is that the term local doesn't really mean anything these days. If you just say local, everybody's using it. I could give lots of examples, but we don't need to get into that. We also do events. So we have our farm to table trade meeting that connects hundreds of buyers and producers together for education and networking and helping to develop those buyer relationships. We do chef farm tours. We get chefs out to local farms to just meet the farmer, taste the product, and see what's going on out there, see the practices. We have a campaign for CSAs, community supported agriculture. The Whatcom County Farm Tour is a public facing event that we do. and we'll see what that looks like this year. We typically have done cooking demos at the Bellingham Farmers Market and the Community Food Co-op, and some other public facing areas just to show people how to use local in-season food. We promote businesses through our newsletter, social media, and different print publications. And then we have, you can go to the next slide, we have the Washington Food and Farm Finder. And so that's an online tool, so you can find local farms. Initially, we started it as a regional 4-county tool, and we've recently expanded through partnerships with other organizations to make it statewide. And so, yeah, it's very user friendly, and that also has a tool within it to find local CSAs. We've done one-on-one marketing consultations with local farmers. And then we've done some wholesale support through a specialty crop block grant. I always have to say that one slow, to help farmers scale up and find out ways to access broader markets, and also help buyers understand the constraints of local farmers. And then I coordinate the Food to Bank On program, and then we also do other farmer education. So Food to Bank On's a 3-year program. It's free to participants. We teach the business aspects of farming, so not so much the on the ground technical assistance. So things like marketing, finance. Oh, thank you for advancing the slide. Business planning, tax strategies, certifications and regulations, hiring and maintaining employees, the things that you don't necessarily want to do as a farmer, but you have to run a good business. We bring in experts in different fields to speak at workshops. And then we connect participants with experienced farmer mentors. So that's a bit more for the technical assistance and just the one-on-one assistance. And then we've been doing this year one-on-one business planning and marketing planning consultations with Sustainable Connection staff. And so another aspect of it is participants are reimbursed for donations to local food banks and hunger relief agencies. So up to $1,200 per farmer per year. And we've had good success. 80% of the farmers who have gone through the program are still farming, which is great considering that about 30% of new businesses succeed over the course of their first 5 years. We've had well over $100,000 in food donated to food banks over 18 years. And then with the Cloud Mountain Farm Center merger, the incubator program provides access to land, equipment, and infrastructure, as well as production assistance. We're still working out a lot of details. It's a fairly new program. And looking forward, we were awarded another grant to create an accelerator program for farms that want to expand to kind of more mid-scale production. And so this year we're going to be fleshing out the details and building that cohort through Western Washington. It's sort of modeled after the Ag of the Middle program through EcoTrust, and we'll be working closely with them to develop a curriculum. So that is as quick as I could get through the introduction. And yeah, I would love to hear questions, comments, and anything else, but that's what I've got.
Hey, thanks so much, Alex. I forgot to mention, if people have questions at any time, they can pop them into the chat. And Sarah is monitoring that chat, and then we can ask clarifying questions right after the panelists, but then we're going to hold off on the main questions during the Q&A. So feel free to use that chat bar, please. And up next is Kristen Rezabek.
Yeah. So like I said, I work for San Juan County Health and Community Services. And in this role, I'm part of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, which is also known as Basic Food or Food Stamps in the state of Washington. And it's essentially the SNAP Ed program. So, and I'm part of the Health and Community, the Healthy Communities Division. So go ahead and move to the next slide, Steph. So just to give you kind of a quick overview of this, it's a grant funded through the state, but it's coming from the federal USDA Food Nutrition Services that provides funding for SNAP Ed. And really the goal is how do we improve fruit and vegetable consumption, and how do we increase physical activity for SNAP eligible audiences? And that would be people who are at 185% of the federal poverty level. So for a family of four, that's about roughly $45,000. So we've been doing this grant since 2017, which has been pretty exciting. And our primary focus has been looking at what we call PSE, policy systems and environment approaches, to really helping make the healthy choice the easy choice. And then I just wanted, for kind of a quick reference, when we think about our county, one of the things to note is when they did a SNAP Ed needs assessment in 2018-19 data, they found that about a quarter of our population in San Juan is SNAP eligible. So that's 4,000, roughly 4,000 people, but actually only about 8% actually are receiving the benefits. So go ahead, next slide.
Come on, there we go.
And then this slide I just put in for reference. I don't know how many of you have seen the ALICE report, which stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. So these are for working people who are employed. And they did this kind of throughout the region. You can look and find the report on the United Way website, or you can contact me, feel free. But it just goes through and talks about sort of what would be the cost of living, essentially. And you can see what they anticipate, which I think in some ways, people who live within San Juan County may feel that these may not be exactly reflective. They may be a little bit under counting what the actual true cost, but like housing for a family of four would be over $1,000 a month. Childcare could range far greater, up to $1,300. And then for food cost, it was close to $600 a month. So that would be sort of the household survival budget for food. All right, and next slide. And then what I wanted to contrast that with is what the average basic SNAP food benefit is. So for a typical family, they would get $134 a month or $4.39 per day in terms of a food benefit. And that's usually put on what we call the EBT, or electronic benefits transfer card. So if you hear me use acronyms, EBT is what I'm talking about, which is kind of like a little debit card like function. And then we did a grocery produce audit, and we were looking at fresh fruits and vegetables predominantly. We looked across the board. This was just on San Juan Island. I would love to do one on Lopez and Orcas Island, but we hadn't got there yet. And we just found, no surprise, that fruits and vegetables are 40% higher on San Juan Island than they are around the nation. So if somebody was trying to actually eat, what the recommendations would be, and this is again coming from fresh fruits and vegetables, it would cost them $3.36 a day just to meet those needs. Go ahead, next slide, Steph. So one of the things that we've really been working on is farm to community. So really thinking about how do we promote more food equity with our underserved populations within San Juan County, and how do we ensure that they have access to local agriculture? So those are some really important ethics that we consider, because one of the things to really think about is that when every dollar that we spend in terms of buying from local farmers and growers, it actually stays within our community, and it's regenerative. So it actually generates $2.80 that supports our local economy. And one of the other things that we found nationwide in studies that look at these incentive programs to eat more fruits and vegetables is that they actually increase fruit and vegetable consumption by 26%. So they're pretty successful in many, many ways. And you can see on the bottom right that Washington Quest, that's an example of the EBT card that we're talking about for those who are on basic food or food stamps or SNAP. And then up above is an example of what a farmer's market nutrition program check looks like, which is a check that's used for WIC and for seniors to go and spend $4 per check, and usually it's $24 buy from FMNP approved farmers. Go ahead, next slide. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is sort of new over the last year is a state-funded market match program. So San Juan Island currently has this, and Orcas Island just got their market approved to accept EBT. It's somewhat of an arduous process. So essentially, this is a state-funded program, and people who have an EBT card can go to the farmer's market and they get a match. So if they put $40 on their EBT card, they actually will get $40 in matching. So they will have $80 to spend at that farmer's market, and it covers fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, mushrooms, herbs, and then any seeds and plants that produce food like tomatoes or strawberries. And next slide. And then what we have done over the last several years, actually prior to this market match program starting, is that we actually created a privately funded match program, which we call the Fresh Bucks program. It started on San Juan and then it went to Orcas Island. And these programs are matching up to $20 when somebody has an EBT card. Or one of the things that was really important for us is that we wanted to make it eligible for people who qualified for EBT but may not be on the program. And that's for a variety of reasons, but particularly for some populations who are concerned about their immigration status, they may not apply even though they're income eligible for EBT. So we have a very simple affidavit that people can sign up for to get a Fresh Bucks card or to be enrolled in a Fresh Bucks program, depending on which island you are. And then they can go and get this benefit, again, a matching dollars up to $20. Of funds. And go ahead and go to the next slide, Steph. So I just wanted to kind of share just a little bit of data that we've pulled out of this. This, again, privately funded. We've had a lot of very generous donors throughout the communities that have contributed money for this. So we definitely are seeing increased consumption of fruits and vegetables for low-income families, just based on the shopping data. We haven't been able to do a survey yet. That's going on right now within Orcas. Right now, the Fresh Bucks program on Orcas is done through the Orcas Island Co-op, and we'll be expanding that now to the farmers market. And then on San Juan, it's done through the San Juan Island Farmers Market and the co-op on San Juan. So what we've seen is really this increase in dollars that are being invested. So for a $15,000 match program, we're seeing well over $30,000 going to our local farmers and growers, which is great. And the data, the preliminary data we have from 2020 is on San Juan. We served 130 people, and they basically received over $8,000 of Fresh Bucks in addition. So really helping to stretch their food dollars at the co-op and farmers market. And what we found is that clients using their own SNAP EBT benefits or their own money to purchase, it actually generated over $25,000 in sales. And then on Orcas, they're a little bit bigger program. So they have over 345 individuals, and they had about $20,000 of matching funds that were used last year. And that basically one for one had over $40,000 in produce sales for the Orcas Island co-op. And their program, they have that structured so that people, it's not for all fresh fruits and vegetables. It's essentially for local foods. They're able to mark that within their point of sale system. And then also for the produce basics items that they have. So yeah, it takes a lot of work to fundraise, but it is a really invaluable program, and it really has helped people to be able to afford more fruits and vegetables, particularly fresh ones. All right, next slide. The next program I want to talk about is our Farmers Market Nutrition Program. And just to put a plug out there to have people, if you're a farmer or grower and sell at one of the farmers market, I just encourage you to apply. So again, this is a state funded program. The state gives $24 per WIC family, and they give $40 per income eligible senior to be able to buy produce at the farmers market. And then again, we have super generous community partners. So we had the Seroptimus on San Juan Island, we had One Canoe, and others. Many food hub members actually helped to support a pilot program that we did in partnership on this program. So we actually raised additional money, so people essentially got $20 to $80 more in addition to the state benefits to buy locally grown foods, which is pretty phenomenal. And then I'll just briefly mention, because of COVID, there were a lot of concerns that people had about going out and shopping, or maybe they fell into a vulnerable population category. So we did make last year a program where they could receive bulk produce deliveries. We called it our Good Food Bag program, and that was open to any WIC or seniors. And we had 69 people participate. It was a phenomenal program. We were able to do 3 to 4 different grocery bags of wonderful fresh produce. You'll see down below there is an example of what was found in one bag of produce that got sent out to clients. So a really wonderful variety, all coming from local farms. And we worked with the Food Hub, who were amazing partners to really help to coordinate and donate all of their time to help us get this program set up and do the logistics of delivering. And we wouldn't have been able to serve Lopez. Unfortunately, Lopez Farmers Market does not accept FMMP checks. So it was very nice to be able to see this go countywide and serve all people who were eligible for the program in the county. Next slide. So if you're interested, this is where my plug goes in. If you are a farmer or grower and want to apply to accept the food benefits, I really encourage you to do that. The deadlines for the Farmers Market Nutrition Program are May 1st for farmers markets that want to apply. And then it's a July 1st deadline for growers, but anytime between now and then is really ideal. And you can go onto the doh.wa.gov website. You can, put this into your browser or just type in FMMP doh.wa.gov, and that should pull you up the information. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is if anyone's interested in accepting EBT at farm stands, there is information. And you have to go through, again, that's a federal program. So you have to go through the U.S. Department of Agriculture Food Nutrition Services, FNS, as we call it, to get your FNS number. And for small farms, they really, they don't want you to fill out an online application. They want you to call their SNAP retailer, the service center, and that phone number is down there below. So I just wanted to kind of let people know about that. And then I did want to share, and this is sort of hot off the presses, which I'm very excited about, but we actually just got news from a funder that they would like to do a pilot debit card program. And essentially what this would be in San Juan, San Juan County, and it would essentially be people who are income eligible, again, for EBT, and you don't have to be enrolled in the EBT program. So we would be looking at income eligible, but we would actually be issuing a debit card. And that debit card would be good at like the Food Hub. It would be good at farmers markets with specific farmers. So if you are a farmer and are set up to accept on credit debit on your, your smartphone, or you have the app for that, then we could actually set you up as a retailer within this debit card program. So pretty excited about this. I think it would, one of the things I've noticed is there's so many different programs that have sort of different parameters or who applies, but I really love the idea of using this debit card program potentially as a pilot to sort of streamline things and make it easier for clients to access, particularly to access locally grown food and see those funds going to our local farmers. So, okay, next slide. And then the last area I want to talk about in terms of a program that is going on is One Canoe, which is a Veggie RX program. It's a produce program. This one got delayed. We actually were working, it's run by Heritage Ranch. And this got delayed due to COVID, obviously, where they were wanting to do much more outreach with healthcare providers. And that has been pretty challenging, as you can miss, with many of our healthcare partners involved in the COVID response. So this is a program, VeggieRx, targeting chronic health conditions. There's so someone has one or more of a chronic health condition where diet really could be impacted in terms of helping to prevent or alleviate some of their symptoms. And they do nutrition education. They want to do recipe demos. And right now that is being structured with coupons or doing bulk produce bags for fruits and vegetables, depending on which island people are on. So it's really trying to, again, incentivize eating more fruits and vegetables to get the nutritional benefits and the disease prevention. All right, and last slide, I think, Steph. And then also wanting to share out that there are gleaning and grow-a-row programs that are available. Lopez did a really wonderful pilot program. And then I know that Orcas is looking at setting up a gleaning program. So this is going out and working with different farms or farmers, and it's actually volunteers coming out. Sometimes it's volunteers coming and doing some planting of certain areas. Again, trying to alleviate some of the workload on the farmers, or if there's excess that can't be harvested in time for farmers to sell, or home gardeners have an orchard and they can't pick all the apples, then these volunteers go through and they will come and pick. So it's a really interesting kind of a program that I would love to see us take a look at. And I think one of the components of it is then what do you do with all this fresh produce? Many food banks are sort of almost overwhelmed in the summer with all of the produce. And what I loved about the Lopez Fresh program is while they harvested over 5,000 pounds of produce, they also did a lot of food processing, so dehydrating and canning things. And so that's something to really think about, I think, in the future within our food banks and some of our coalitions, is having access to some kind of a commercial community kitchen where we can do more food processing of items that in season we have sometimes kind of an abundance with the harvest, but then how do we maybe take those and put them up so that we can have them available over the course of the longer winter months to be able to give out to more of our both food bank or our lower income population. So that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Kristen. A lot of great information. And I noticed that quite a few more people have been joining. So just a reminder to pop in questions in the chat if you have them, and we will have Sarah relay those back during the Q&A, or if there's clarifying questions, Sarah will pop in and let us know.
Steph, I'm going to jump in just quickly because there's one question for Kristen that might not come up later in the panel, and that was whether fruit trees are included in the market match.
Oh, that's a great question. I think they are. I think they're a food growing plant. So that would be my understanding. But I can if that is not the correct answer, I can actually follow up with our regional lead who coordinates that program. But my understanding is that if it's a food growing plant, it should be eligible.
All right, thank you. Anna and Mike are up next.
Great. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Anna, and I'm really excited to be here this morning with everyone. And we're going to be talking to you today about our Swinomish 13 Moons at Work program and all the things that it entails. As a whole, we try and promote food sovereignty in our Swinomish tribal community, as well as raise the conversation of climate change. If you can go to the next slide. And so here's a list of the programs that we have. So we maintain our 13 Moons community garden. We also host weekly produce stands at 5 different locations around our reservation. And we also offer an elder produce delivery service, which is newly added, which is really exciting for those who can't make it to our produce stands. Another recent addition is our baby food mills, and offering those for new parents, as well as creating demo videos online for new parents on how to use them to promote healthier eating for younger people, as well as elders who can't consume large food. And then another thing that we do is we engage in wild plant harvesting and medicine making, and then we offer the medicine that we make, as well as the plants that we harvest at our produce stand. And we also maintain the 13 Moons at Work Facebook page, where we stay up to date with all the work that we're doing to keep the community engaged. And especially with the pandemic going on, that's our main resource and our main platform for spreading our information. And we also teach weekly youth outdoor lessons about our wildlife and plants. If you go to the next slide. So to give you guys a scope as to where Swinomish is, if you don't already know, Swinomish Indian Tribal Reservation is kind of located in Laconar and on the brink of Anacortes as well. It's originally made up of Kikialis, Lower Skagit, Upper Skagit, and Samish. And then all of those tribes were condensed down to the Swinomish Reservation, which is where it is in the photo. If you go to the next slide. Here's a picture of our community garden, more specifically our elder garden, and our elder garden did really well this year, so we were really excited about that. During the summer months, when we can, we pick produce from our garden and we provide that at our produce stands. And then during our off-season months, we will usually get donations from local farms or buy from local food vendors. Here's a picture of two of our biggest squash that we had this year. It was really incredible. Our Three Sisters garden did amazing. So it's really fun to engage and have the community members come to our gardens and see the produce and be able to pick it themselves if they can, if we don't harvest it for them. Next slide. And here's a picture of one of our youth interns. This is actually my younger sister, Sarah. And so she's been helping us out every Wednesday on our produce stand weeks. And it's been really exciting having more youth engaged from the community, being able to serve the community, which is one of our biggest things as a program. And that's some of the produce that we offer. If you can go to the next slide. And here's just more photos of some of the produce that we offer. We try and make it look as appealing as we can. We found that that's what also helps create more engagement and encourages people to eat healthier. Next slide. And here's a picture of some of the elder packages that we kind of create. We just kind of do a little bit of all the different types of produce, and then we deliver them we just do a porch drop. And then we also, this past week, we delivered to a couple of families who are currently in quarantine as well. So they're able to also enjoy the produce. And here's a photo of one of our produce stands that we offer that's not on our main site. The picture on the left is our main site. And then again, we have 4 other produce stands at the medical center, the transitional living house, the preschool, and the fitness center, if I didn't already say that. And our medical center is one of our largest ones because we have a lot of foot traffic there. And that's kind of what they look like at the different locations. Next slide. And here's a picture of myself. We do about once a month a demo on how to use a baby food mill. And again, we offer these for free to community members who are in need of them as new parents, or if they're trying to feed their elders who again can't consume larger foods. Next slide. And then these are some of the treats that we make. At the produce stand, we have a wild plant of the week, and what we do is we try and experiment with it, and we make different things. So we had carrot muffins one week with rosehip tea, as well as a chocolate beet cake, which the community members really loved and enjoyed. And then we post these online to our Facebook page, as well as the recipes, to encourage folks after they get produce from our stand to make them at home. Next slide. And here, so something to say about our produce stands is this is what our produce stand originally started out as on the left. And so since then it's grown tremendously. Again, we have 5 locations now, and our main site, we've expanded drastically in comparison to this stand. It is harder to sustain with our community garden, but it's definitely been worth it. All the community members seem to really enjoy it, and we're really grateful to be able to provide that for them. And here's an example of some of the plant medicines that we offer. We have St. John's wort tincture and California poppy glycerin, 2 of our most popular plant medicines that we offer. Next slide. And then here's one of our tea blends that we offer. This is one of our more popular ones. And one of the other things that we offer depending on the week. Next slide. And then something else that we've done during the pandemic is creating kits for families to take home to kind of make things on their own. So this was our fire cider kit, and we provided all the materials. All they had to do was kind of put it together and wait the allotted time to enjoy their fire cider. Next slide. And something else that we've done, we usually host weekly workshops, but due to the pandemic, we're not able to do in-person ones as much. So we usually create videos, and or during the summer months, we kind of do it separated, where we can have people socially distanced, so they're able to enjoy the plant lesson of the week and in a safe area. So this was our forest tea ring workshop, which was really fun, where they got to take some of the herbs that we harvested and make a little tea ring to place in their home and enjoy for tea. Next slide. And here's an example of one of the posts that we do on our Facebook page. And so we kind of do, again, we do a wild plant of the week, and then we make cards about them, talking about key identifiers and its medicinal uses, and just other information that might be useful for community members to start engaging and learning about our wild plants. And then that's another example of one of our kits. We made a tea kit from licorice fern. And then we also made a honey for them to enjoy with their tea. Next slide. And here's an example of one of our plant lessons with some of the preschoolers. This was on clams. Next slide. And here's a picture again of one of our slides that we post on our Facebook page. And here's an image of the kids drawing how much water is inside of them. And something that we hope to accomplish with teaching the kids at such a young age is kind of just planting a seed in their head that they'll hopefully remember in the future to encourage that healthy eating and kind of break the stigma of kind of going into unhealthy habits, especially in tribal lands where it's especially pertinent. Next slide. And here's a list of some of the folks that are in our department. We have Larry Campbell, who's a Swinomish elder. We have Jamie Donatudo, and then Mike Heidt, and then myself. We're really excited, again, to be sharing this information with you all. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Anna. That was very informative. I really love the produce carts that you do put in different retail outlets. It's a really great idea. All right, so I'm going to turn things over to Catherine.
Thanks, Steph. Yeah, that was so interesting. It's really amazing to see all the good work being done in our community. So thank you all. So our first question is, I'm going to go for Anna and Mike to begin. How is information being gathered about the needs of your communities? From who gets the food to types of food offered to the procurement of that food?
Well, we started out, as Anna beautifully illustrated, with one small produce stand with the produce from our community garden. And so as people's interest grew, we could also tell that we needed to do more outreach because not everyone comes to the Enwick campus site, the Northwest Indian College Swinomish site. So we asked if we could put one at the transition house, which was close by. So that took off. People, so many people were stopping there because it's right on a main street. And so even people who aren't at the transitional house, they'll see the fruit and the vegetables and they'll just swing in and pick them up. And of course, as Anna mentioned, we advertise it, on our Facebook page, as well as posting it on a community text, because things tend to get lost in Facebook. So that helps remind people that it's produce day. And I will also mention that the produce is all free. So there's no obstacle or access issues for people to get that. And it's all grant funded or foundation funded program. And also, I think it's been really helpful to, as Anna also mentioned, at the preschool for parents who are working or grandparents who pick up their grandchildren from 3 to 6. It's there for them to pick up. And Anna and her sister, when they go to the preschool on Wednesdays also to teach, they remind the children or have them help put produce in the produce baskets and remember to take some home. And so those seeds are really being planted, and the children, we track what the children like to have. And so it is also one of the things that Anna does is track all the community members that come, if they're new or returning, male, female, youth, adult, elder, information like that. So that helps us to kind of figure out who is participating in the program and who are we missing? Who do we need to reach out to? So it's been really helpful to track that kind of information and help us provide better outreach to people we may be missing. As Anna mentioned, we started the Elder Drop program, and that was at request of a couple elders who are housebound. And so we now have a regular list of people that on produce day, when we're filling the produce stands, we just swing by and drop it off to the elders. And we don't engage at this point because of COVID. We're being very careful. But some of the wonderful comments that we've gotten, we've been doing this for a few months now, and some elders have come and said, if I have vegetables in the house, my wife will cook them. and I can already feel better. My knees and joints are feeling better because I'm eating more vegetables. So it's just amazing, you know, how positive the outcomes are for people eating better and how quickly it happens. It's not taking long periods of time for people to feel better by just increasing their diet with fresh fruits and vegetables. So we do invite community members to come and work in the garden at least once a week. Swinomish has a program, a scholarship program for higher education. Anyone enrolled in that program is required to commit 20 hours for the summer months prior to their next school year. So we get a lot of people that come and help us in the gardens. And it's been great. There's people who said, I always wanted to learn how to garden, and I haven't ever had the chance. So Anna and one of the scholars just put in a raspberry row. So that was awesome. He said, I had never done anything like that. So those are some of the things, and I'm sure Anna might have some more to add.
Thank you, Mike. That's fascinating. Anna, anything from you?
I think Mike covered a good portion.
Great. Great. Kristen, what about you? Do you want me to repeat the question?
I think if I remember it correctly, Catherine, you were looking at like how are we looking at what the needs are for our yeah. So I would say this is an area that we've been, Lopez did a Lopez food insecurity study, so that kind of each island has done some specific sort of needs assessment components. Orcas right now is doing a wrap up of their Fresh Bucks program from last year, so surveying their participants. So I'm excited to see what some of the data comes back on that. And then certainly we did have our SNAP program for the state did some regional needs assessments. But I would say this is one area that I would love to see us do more on. Part of it has just been capacity. We have pretty limited funds in our county when it comes to SNAP Ed. So I would love to see us do a much more concentrated needs assessment. I think what we know anecdotally from participants is that they find it really a challenge to get more fresh produce, particularly locally grown fresh produce in the kind of the winter and those shoulder season months. And I know that that's something too that the food banks really struggle with as well. So just increasing some of those season extender types of infrastructure for local farmers and funding those projects for them would be really important to provide more of those kinds of crops. And then I know in the summer months for a lot of our farmers market nutrition program and our Fresh Bucks program participants, they love to get more fruits and things. So that's always kind of a hot topic, whether it's strawberries or blueberries or raspberries. You know, those are things that people are really looking for in the summer months in particular. So yeah, this is an area that I would love for us to engage quite a bit more, particularly for our Latinx communities. I think that is a definite underserved population that we need to be more in depth in terms of going out and talking with them and kind of understanding challenges and barriers and really having their voices be heard. And I think one of the limitations has been, again, the funding to support that. And I also feel that people's time, participants, should be valued. And with SNAP Ed, I'm not able to provide them with some compensation. And I really do feel that, you know, when people take the time to respond to whether it's, you know, participating in a focus group, I think focus groups are better oftentimes than surveys. Just you can get a little bit more information or some key stakeholder interviews. But I would love to be able to compensate people in some form for honoring us with their time to give that information and feedback. So that's something I'd love to explore in the future, but probably we would have to look at getting some additional funding supports to make that happen.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I just want to put an exclamation point on that. You know, as we're gathering information from the community, we need to be compensating people for their time. That's been a challenge for us. But moving into the things that we've done, we've worked with the Whatcom Food Network. We did a community food assessment. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. but that was kind of more of a top-down assessment from people in various organizations. I won't go too much in a detail about that. You can check it out and check out the broad strokes recommendations. But yeah, in terms of how we're gathering the info about the needs in our communities, we encourage for the Food to Bank On program, donating to food banks. We encourage people to donate to food banks that are within their own communities or close by with their farms, and talk with the staff of the food banks about, you know, what's culturally appropriate. Unfortunately, especially rural food banks are frequently understaffed, volunteer based, so it can be really challenging to make that extra time, especially with farmers being you know, perennially overworked. We did do a little, you know, experiment in collaboration with Western a couple years ago. We did some listening groups in a couple different communities. We gained a little bit of insight, especially into East Whatcom County. It was very interesting just hearing about some of the barriers, and we can go into that a little bit more later. But yeah, I mean, it was just fascinating to hear from people that, like, most of the people who live past kind of Van Zant, east of there, their main grocery store is Starvin' Sam's. And you may or may not be familiar with Starvin' Sam's, but it's a gas station. I forget if it's like Chevron or Exxon or whatever, but yeah, there are a lot of barriers, and we got to overcome that. And yeah, I think learning about the communities and compensating people for the time to actually get their insight into, you know, what we can do as organizers, and meeting people where they're at is the only way to address the like systemic barriers to people having access to good food, or it's at least one of the main ways.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, it's looking at the whole system. So moving on to the next question, and this is for Anna and Mike at first. As you're addressing your community's needs, how are you supporting cultural relations to food through this work?
That's a great question. One of our main objectives isn't to share culturally sensitive information, especially in tribal communities. It's really big. Like, we're not trying to share like secret harvesting spots or anything like that. We're just trying to share kind of, I guess you can say, surface level information, just so we can spark these conversations when they take this information back to their house. It's like with the preschoolers, when we send them home with a sample of the plant of our week, or when we make something like Nick lemonade, or when we make licorice fern root tea. We're hoping that when these families try these and sample these and take them home, that they're able to share with their elders or share with their families, to bring back those stories and to kind of revitalize what's been missing for a lot of years in a lot of families. And it's been really great, because a lot of the comments that we've gotten from some community members is that, like, when they come, they're reminded of like how much they love nettle and how much their family used to harvest that. And it's just beautiful to see. And we're, again, really grateful for the work that we're able to do. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add, Mike.
I think one of the things that I've learned in working in this community, that everything has a story. And so Anna and her sister have been great at learning stories, Coast Salish stories, and sharing them as a teaching tool, especially with the preschoolers. And there are many stories by Roger Fernandez, who is a traditional storyteller in Coast Salish territory. And so that's been a fabulous tool, because that's how tribal people carry forward oral information, is through storytelling. So Anna and her sister have been really modeling storytelling at Swinomish, and people are getting excited about that. They want to hear those stories, and they see the need to have and develop more storytellers. And so, like some of the elders say, our teachings are just sleeping on some of these things. And this is helping wake that up. And so again, it's to spark conversation at home. Take those wild plants home, that wild medicine, and it will spark conversations when you start speaking to your elders, your grandmas, your aunties, and so on. So it's been super positive, and people are asking more questions about wild plants.
Yeah, thank you, Mike and Anna. That's really significant. Alex, what about you? Addressing communities' needs. How are you supporting cultural relations to food through your work?
Yeah, this one's hard for me. And I think I should just, state right off the bat that our organization, as with much of our dominant culture, is steeped in white supremacy. And it's not something you can just scrub off the surface and rinse it off. It's endemic. And it's something that needs to be removed from the inside. And so we're working on that, and it's challenging. We have been moving towards having more conversations to engage BIPOC farmers and business owners, and folks from underrepresented communities. We've been doing our best to offer translation for our publications, interpretation for our events. And so, yeah, that's kind of addressing the community's needs aspect. Cultural relations to food, I would again just say, like trying to build these relationships with farmers who are growing foods from their particular cultures, and for people who are, traditionally accustomed to having those foods, and just learning. I mean, I think really we're in a position of learning. We're a very white organization, and we're trying to overcome that. And I, I'm not proud of that. I'm not saying that's a good thing, and I don't want that to come across. And we're all learning and trying to grow, but mostly just building relationships and trying to, without asking for too much information from the community, without asking people to teach us for free, trying to learn as much as we can about what we can do to engage.
Yeah.
Alex, can you clarify what BIPOC is?
Yeah, so Black, Indigenous, people of color. And I've recently heard that sometimes that's not the best term to use, because there are different concerns for Black people versus Indigenous people versus people of color, and lumping them together is, a bit of the white supremacist culture. And so that's the term that I think is mostly in vogue, but I do want to just name that I've heard there are differing opinions on that.
Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that clarification, Steph. Kristen, this question is for you. Do SNAP customers and other vulnerable groups have the means to participate in alternative supply chains and COVID solutions to access food?
Yeah. Well, and that has been something that we've really been working hard on, again, trying to give people more choice of where they shop in terms of these different EBT incentive programs. So, it's kind of looking at, and again, with this new debit card access program, I think that's one of the things that I'm really excited to pilot out over the course of next year is I think it's really important that clients have choice of where they want to spend their food dollars. And I think it's also been really exciting to see the generosity of our private funders within our different island communities who have really stepped up and said, you know what, it's an important value and ethic that we not only support people who are lower income, but we also fund our farmers, and that our farmers are going to be able to, you know, we're not asking them to donate. We're actually giving people the resources, additional resources to be able to purchase from local farmers and choose whether that's through the food hub or through a local farm stand or at the farmers market or at the co-op. Because those are typically sort of the main right now venues where people can go and get foods. And I know there's also some, you know, different CSA programs also that through the food banks that are working and providing some of those access points as well. But yeah, so in response to COVID in particular, we really tried to be quite sensitive to the fact that people had some legitimate concerns about being out in public over the course of last year. And their risk of exposure. And so we have a vulnerable populations group in the county that actually does home delivery, predominantly of food and medicine and other household essentials. And that's up and running on each of the islands through most of them through the resource centers and the senior centers. And so they're doing a large number. I think it's up to over 12,000 that was done in terms of the home deliveries of items. And then, like I said, we did that pilot Good Food Bag program for our WIC and Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program participants and just gave them the option. They were welcome to take their checks and spend them at the market, or we set up with the Food Hub, who were so incredibly gracious in donating time and also helping fundraise to support these programs. And then thanks to Heritage Ranch, One Canoe, and Seroptimus that provided some additional funding support so we could really provide more robust produce bags. We were able to run that through the summer, and it got great. We did a survey of our participants and really got such positive feedback. In fact, all of our WIC participants in the program said that they would love to do that program again. We coordinated that so that people could come and pick them up either at the Food Hub site, or they could pick it up at the food bank, or in some cases, we actually dropped off at clients' homes or at their child care center for them. So it just depended on what the circumstances were. And probably the one thing that is the most disappointing to me is for seniors, we can do a bulk purchasing program, so we can definitely offer that for seniors. But WIC, who had given us, we were the only WIC program in the entire state that was given sort of this special permission to be able to do a WIC bulk purchase program. And I just learned a few weeks ago that that was denied for this summer, for summer of 2021. So we will not be able to do, using our WIC FMMP funds, a bulk purchase program. But my hope is that we will find a way to serve those people's needs. So it's kind of one of those unfortunate aspects where policy has dictated that we weren't able to continue to support that, but we will find a way if people need that choice.
Yeah, sounds good, Kristen.
Oh, and I should say one more. And I totally forgot to say this because I got off on my tangent, but the summer feeding program started as well. So I just want to kind of call out, each of the islands, again, did something different. I know Lopez Fresh really stepped up and did some amazing things with being able to support local restaurants and whatnot to provide hot meals during the food bank deliveries. But both Orcas and San Juan did a summer feeding program, which they've never done with their school-age children. And that was phenomenal. And I think that's something that we will hopefully see continue. There was a large number of children that were participating. And it was really invaluable for families to essentially get a box of food items that they could prepare for children that had both breakfast and lunch. And so that was really great. And we also worked with some local farmers to get produce included into those boxes.
Kristen, we have a couple of questions from the chat that I think are appropriate here. There was a question about why we think that it's only 8% of people actually participating in the SNAP Ed program, and as opposed to the 23% of people that are eligible. So if you could say a little bit more about that. And I am also curious whether that's a typical breakdown, if you know if San Juan County is normal in that way, or if there's always that gap, or if that's kind of something specific to this region.
So there is typically a gap in other counties. I actually couldn't speak to how great that is. It feels like a larger gap for us. Part of that is because for some people who are income eligible, depending on their immigration status, if they apply for EBT benefits, if they apply for SNAP, they will be considered a public charge, and it impacts their immigration status, and so they don't want to do that. So for many clients, that's a big impact. For other clients, there's a lot of hoops to jump through, and sometimes people's income just barely makes the cutoff, and so they have to go through all these hoops, and then the determination by DSHS is that they only get like $20 in benefits. So not every client gets that 134 average benefit. It can really range. And, you know, for somebody to jump through a ton of hoops and then to get a $20 on their EBT card may not feel, it may not feel like it's worth it. And then there's other factors that can impact people's ability to apply for EBT, even though they're income eligible. So that's why that was really important for us to really honor the circumstances that make people, you know, hesitant or decide not to participate and use SNAP benefits because of some of those concerns, but to make sure that people who are income eligible did get access to food benefits. And we are able to do that because of private funds, because we're not using those federal dollars.
And when you surveyed customers, there's a question of whether those surveys include what sort of food items the clients were finding most useful or preferred to receive.
Clients, so again, our surveys have been more informal. So right now I'm waiting to hear back from the Orcas, the Fresh Bucks survey, and our San Juan survey completely got submarined by COVID. It was supposed to start last year, and then I've been wearing many hats with our COVID response too. So haven't gotten most of those results back, but like I was saying earlier, people really loved more fresh things that they could prepare for their families, and a lot of the fruits. Again, a lot of the berries and some of those items were pretty popular items. And yeah, I think it would be lovely to see us do a more robust and in-depth survey of sort of what people would like to see being grown. But you know, they were really loving things like the salad greens and the cucumbers and the carrots and you know, a lot of these things that you can just sort of wash and eat. Yeah. And tomatoes. I don't want to forget tomatoes because those are obviously a huge hit.
Thank you, Kristen, and thanks for those great questions from the audience. So, Alex, what about the production side? I wonder if you could tell us what has worked well and the challenges that you've encountered in your work towards more equitable access to land for food to bank on. How do the farmers you work with access the land?
Yeah, that's a great question. Land access is obviously one of the biggest challenges to equity in the food system. Oftentimes we talk about equity in terms of the consumer end, but yeah, on the supply end, getting farmers on land, and land is the #1 way to build generational wealth. As many of us know, I think a lot of us also know that the land in this region is outrageously expensive because of development pressure, low inventory, and the influx of outside money. You know, people from companies I won't name moving up and taking the, let's say, prime farmland. Hint, hint. So I'm going to speak a little bit on behalf of Viva Farms because they can't send a representative, and they're close partners, and yeah, condolences to the whole team. They're good friends and great people. Their ability to get people onto farmland and provide a lower barrier option for beginning farmers is amazing. We also have an incubator farm at Cloud Mountain Farm Center. Viva Farms is a bit more explicit in their mission to provide access to farmland for Latinx farm workers who want to become farm owners. So people who have the skills but don't have the access to capital as much. So our incubator program is less developed. We're still kind of working out the kinks and modeling it largely after them. So yeah, in terms of options for purchasing land for folks, the biggest barrier, of course, is going to be, you know, if folks don't have farm operator experience and they don't have a huge wad of cash to throw down for a down payment, then it makes land access difficult. So the Farm Service Agency, they have loans that are very low interest, low down payment, and then just another option is the Purchase of Development Rights Program. I'm only really familiar with the Whatcom County program, but essentially, let's say you got 20 acres that has a house on it, and the rest of it's farmland, but you know the rights to develop it, you know, you could put 3 more houses on it and subdivide it into 5-acre parcels, which is what everybody who has a wad of cash and a decent, you know, high-paying job wants, is 5 acres and a house. So that's really valuable. And so the development rights increase the value but make it less likely to be used as farmland. So the county currently will pay the owner for the development rights. Essentially, they appraise the property with the development rights and without, and they pay the farmer the difference. And you can also do that through the course of purchase. So it reduces the value of the property, but it's going to reduce that development pressure as well and make that property more accessible to farmers who don't have as much capital. So those are just kind of a couple options for getting people onto land. I mean, there's lots more to be said. Like this could be, you know, whole hour talk, and I wouldn't be the one who's qualified to give it. But yeah, I know we're running a little bit over time, so that's all I'll say for now.
Thank you, Alex. And we do have a number of audience questions about farm link programs to help starting out farmers who are just starting out, link up with retiring farmers. For anyone who's not watching the chat, please do open the chat. There are a number of new posts in there with links to various programs in our area that are working on that issue of land access. Reese has mentioned the Puget Sound Agrarian Commons. Steph has mentioned that the San Juan Islands Ag Guild runs a Farmers to Farmland program. There are links to check out all of those directly if you are curious about local land access efforts that are underway. Some of these questions we may end up needing to take into the breakout sessions just for reasons of time, since we only have about 10 minutes left. But there's a question about funding for the preserving work that's happening. I think specifically that was on Lopez Island, where they're working on taking, the food bank is taking some of those summertime donations of really abundant produce and actually doing some canning, that kind of thing. Catherine, maybe you could address where and how that is happening, like where they're locating the dehydrators, who's doing the actual work of the preserving. Maybe you could say a little bit about that. There were a couple of questions on that program.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really lucky to work with the Lopez Locavores, which is a all volunteer group here who processes food and makes meals and soups and a whole host of other amazing food for our food bank and our school. And we use Taproot Kitchen, which is a community commercial kitchen here in the center of the island. And they also use the school, and there's another commercial kitchen called Fork in the Road. So we're lucky to have a number of places to process food. And connected with our gleaning program, we have lots of volunteers and staff who spend hours and hours and hours picking fruit in the fall from August to November, really, and then processing that food through the winter. And so we still have apples, kiwis, and apple pear sauce that we're giving out currently.
Thank you. There is a question about folks who are interested in accessing culturally familiar foods, which simply don't grow in this climate. And so how does the goal of providing the locally grown food interact with the goal of providing culturally relevant foods for people who are from very different climates? That's not a question directed at any one of you, but if anyone has thoughts about that or has seen interesting programs working on that disconnect, that would be really interesting to hear from you, and or pop something in the chat if anybody in this audience knows of any good information on that. There is also a question about what we know about childhood hunger. What's the level of childhood hunger in this area, even in spite of the various programs and options that we're running now? Do you have information on that, Kristen?
So I don't have all the sort of the recent data, but I will say that our free and reduced school meal, which is kind of one of the gauges that we use to look at childhood hunger or risk for childhood hunger, but those are for children whose families' incomes basically qualify them for free and reduced school meal. And certainly no surprise, particularly during COVID, we saw all of those numbers increase. And you can find that data on the Office of Superintendent for Public Instruction website. Like I said, I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but they all increased within our schools. And then I do know that they're trying to support kind of giving additional benefits for families with school-age children that qualify. So there's the pandemic EBT program. So if a child is on the free and reduced school meal and they're enrolled in EBT, they get automatic benefits added, additional benefits added to their EBT card. And then for some of the families that we talked about who were not enrolled in SNAP, but they certainly could get basically a card for their child. I'm thinking particularly of families where the immigration status would have been an issue within our Latinx community, in particular within San Juan County. So they could actually apply, and that would not be counted as a public charge for those families. So those are some of the things that are being done. And then, like I mentioned, the summer feeding programs that happened on both Orcas and San Juan and Lopez Fresh, and Catherine can speak more kind of, but they really had increased their program and sort of what they were able to supply for families. So pretty amazing response that was seen, but they provided basically food for children for the summer. And that hadn't been done on Orcas or San Juan in the past. And I think based on that program and how successful it was, that there's plans in the works to continue those programs so that children are being fed over the summer. So as you can imagine, you know, when school ends, for many kids on free and reduced school meals, they don't get those meals. At least they didn't in the past on Orcas and San Juan. So there was a great community step up in terms of how can we support and ensure that these programs get funded.
And Amanda from the Orcas Food Bank is adding that they serve 162 children under the age of 18 each week, and that's not including the school weekend packs. So there's another more firm number about the scope of this problem in our community. Anna and Mike, did you want to speak to this question at all about children specifically? And then I'll tack on to that. There was an audience question to Anna of whether you felt it was appropriate to share more about catching stories from elders. I think that idea really resonated with some of our audience members.
Well, I'll talk about the children while Anna thinks about a response to that sensitive question. For the children, last summer, during COVID, we have at the community gardens, we have youth center kids, elementary age kids that would come up, walk up from the youth center, and we would do outdoor school with them using social distancing. And it was really great. We did My Native Berry book. It's by, if anyone knows about the Grub School in Olympia, the 10 Gather Grow curriculum. So we did the My Native Berry book, and it has the ABCDEs of scientific drawing, how to identify wild berries. And so it's quite a detailed book. And so children get to use all the STEAM activities in this educational outdoor school. And it was so popular. They wanted to come back every week with their book. and to learn more about each berry as it went on. And as Anna has already demonstrated with the preschoolers, we either talk about a wild plant or an animal, and we base it on our 13 Moons curriculum. So right now we're in the moon when the frog talks. And so they just, if you go onto 13 Moons, that Facebook page, you can see an awesome example of Anna and her sister doing a lesson because of COVID outbreak. All the youth center and school programs were canceled for 2 weeks, but we didn't want the children to miss out. So she and her sister did this awesome little lesson on when the moon when the frog talks, and taught the Lushootseed word for frog, walk, walk, and it's adorable. So parents could watch that and do that with their children at home. So again, we have been using Facebook quite a lot for many things, to do outreach to parents, grandparents, whoever are guardians of young children, so that they can implement those at home as well. So reaching the children is really important because as we talked about, they go home and they talk to their grandmas and aunts and grandpas and uncles about what they learned. And it sparks those conversations to share those unique family teachings about that plant or animal.
Moving on to the other question regarding catching stories from elders. I think familiarity is probably the most important aspect in doing that. And having someone from the community to engage with the community members is really big. So with being a Swinomish tribal member and having really strong ties to the community, I think that's really helpful in my engagement from personal experience. And from what I've seen in other communities, other tribal communities that have large success, is just having that camaraderie and also just those familiar ties with one another, and knowing that getting these stories from elders is sensitive and takes time, and really building strong relationships.
Thank you, Anna. And we're down to the very end of our time here. And there is one more very important question that came up in the comments. And I think it's something that we can really all ask ourselves, since we don't have time for the panelists to respond to it now, but I think we can all take it into the breakout groups. And that is, for organizations that are recognizing their own white supremacy within the organization, what efforts are we making to have the paid staff and persons in positions of power mirror the ethnic diversity in our areas? And that's something that should be informing all of our work as we go into breakouts and talking more about how to realize some of our purposes and practices.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to all of our panelists for the work that you do, which is obviously changing your communities and helping to facilitate more equitable food practices, and for being here today. We're so glad to hear from you and to learn from you. So thank you. And just one more reminder, we are going to take a break here, but Steph is going to say a few things. But if you are staying for the breakout sessions, which we would love for you to do, there's 4 topics. The first is food security. The second is accessing markets. Third is getting started in farming. And fourth is education. And it's been posted here in the chat box a few times. You can add the number of the topic to your name. We will easily be able to add you to that breakout group. And you can do that by scrolling over your box with your name in it, and then clicking the 3 dots and going to rename and adding the number to your name if you have not. And that's it for me. Steph, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks everybody. Really informative, very interesting. And I wish we had more time because we had more questions, but we're going to take a 15-minute break. So stretch your legs, get hydrated, and then we'll come back at 11:45 to go into our breakout rooms. And Wendy Waxman Kern will be leading the group on a process on how we can talk about these things within our own organizations. So come back.
And so you know, as we were planning this and talking about it, we were talking about finding a facilitation method that would work to create some action planning for you and in your home organizations. And you know, we weren't certain where our audience was going to be coming from, whether it was going to be all San Juan County folks or people from around the state. And so what I'm going to introduce you today and and I have a bunch of helping co-facilitators this morning. What we're going to be helping work through and introduce you today is a process by liberating structures. And so I'll be sharing that website with you later on so that you can take a look. We're going to have a Google slide deck that you'll have access to. This is all open source, and the whole idea is that it gives you the opportunity to have these really specific tools so that you can facilitate your own conversations. And so today is just a glimpse into that for time reasons. And again, not knowing exactly who was going to come to the table, so to speak. So we're going to, you know, practice this, try it out, and modify it a little bit for our purposes here today. And then I would just encourage you, if you think this might be a useful tool for your toolkit, to go ahead and visit that site and get a little bit more information. And we've been using liberating structures methods in WSU Extension quite a bit, and very widespread, to some good success, doing things like strategy planning and getting people to think about things in a slightly different way. So I'm just checking my notes here. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover before I go ahead and show you my presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and share screens. And I'm kind of looking at Steph and Sarah and Kate right now. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can see that? Awesome, thank you. So we're going to be working with two particular methods today: purpose to practice, or what they call P2P. And then at the very end, when we do a brief group reflection, we'll use the chat function for that. And we're going to use the what, so what, now what method, which is just a way of reflecting and also figuring out some next steps. So moving along, this is the process that we will be working with, purpose to practice. And it comes with a worksheet that you can download off of the website and use in your organizations. I'm going to show you some examples of this in just a moment. The way we're going to do this is using the chat, and we'll be sending prompts to you. For the purpose of the activity, we went ahead and defined the purpose for each of your breakout rooms today using the title of our workshop, to create equitable food access through local food procurement. Now, I will add the caveat that according to Liberating Structures authors, your purpose should be wildly attractive to you and your organization in order for you to really get behind it and be motivated to do this work. And so you may find in your breakout room that you want to edit the purpose that we gave you. Again, there are time constraints. So for the sake of the exercise, it may just be sensible to stick with this purpose for now, to try this on for size and see how it works. It may be that your organization needs multiple sessions spread out over weeks or months to work on this process. It's going to be something that would probably be a living document that you go back and revise. But as you can see, it works in this kind of circular motion. And as you can see, the fifth arrow points back to the first. And so you may, like I said, revisit, revise, starting with the purpose. Why is the work important to you and the larger community? And moving on then to principles. What rules must we obey in pursuit of our purpose? The must do's and must not do's. Participants, who must be included to achieve our purpose? Who are our stakeholders? What resources can we draw on? Who are the people we need to be involved in this process? Structure, how will we organize to distribute control? Now, I will add this consideration that sometimes it can be helpful to look at structure even metaphorically. Maybe there's an image that works well for your organization that captures this idea of structure and what structures need to be in place. And finally, practices. What are we going to do? What will we offer to our users, our clients, our community members? That's obviously going to require, again, you may have to revisit previous steps and make sure that you're still on track. When you get to practices, you may realize, oh, we need to go back to structure and take another look at that. Or you get to structure and you realize, we need to go look at our participants. This isn't quite matching up. It's a dynamic process. So those are the 5 steps. For the purposes of today, we're going to be using our chat function. We'll be sending you prompts and walking you through these steps. And it's going to be very simplified, very reduced. And overall, this process should, though, in your organizations, really create some shared ownership. And it avoids design by small groups of experts, and it really has the potential to distribute power more fairly. So it can break down in ways some of those older power structures that may exist and get more voices involved. And as far as looking at the people, looking for the people to be involved in this conversation, I think you would want to do just that and draw on the people in your organization or in your community who can help you have this conversation to move from purpose to practice. I'm looking back at my notes, as you can probably tell, just making sure that I am not forgetting anything major that I wanted to show you. Like I said, this is an open Google slide deck. And so we will share the link to this. You'll have access to it. Even as you're doing your breakout rooms, you can flip back through the previous slides and revisit this information. Here's a few examples. Now, you can tell these were probably all created pre-COVID. And, as a facilitator, I'd love to be doing this with you in person and using flip chart paper and sticky notes and all sorts of things. I think if you were doing this virtually with people, there are ways to recreate that experience in some ways. And I'd be happy to share some resources with you. Jamboard comes to mind as a way of doing sticky notes. We've done a lot of different things. There are tools now that we can use to kind of create something like this. But these are just some examples. These are all taken straight from the Liberating Structures website. So you can go there, see these, read through it, find even more considerations than I shared with you today for time reasons. In our breakout rooms, which you've already selected, we have the first room, food security programs, that will be facilitated by Catherine. The second room, accessing markets, and that'll be facilitated by Sarah and Reese. The third room, getting started in farming with Steph. And finally, the fourth room, education with Brooke. When you get to your breakout rooms, we ask that you choose a note taker. So our breakout rooms will start at the latest at 12 o'clock, and you'll select a note taker. And that will be the person who will add notes to your slide. Each group has its own slide. I'll just scan ahead to show you that real quick. They look like this. So they already have the purpose filled in, again, for the sake of this exercise. And you'll want to pick somebody who can take notes and add to these slides. Don't feel like you need to put down 3 principles there just because I have 3 spots for it. You may get 1 good principle. That's okay. It's just an exercise. So you can see there's a slide for each group. Again, anyone with the link can edit this. So that part should be pretty straightforward. So facilitator is already established. You'll want to pick a note taker to add to the Google Slides. As I said, the purpose is to create equitable food access through local food procurement. We'll send the prompts through the chat, and they're also in this Google slide deck on the next slide. There will be 6 minutes for each prompt, and I would ask that you take that first minute or so just to jot down your thoughts and reflect a little bit on it. And this may be what's relevant then to your organization. Just first thoughts on that prompt before you go into the group conversation. So about 1 minute for self-reflection, about 5 minutes to have a group conversation. It sounds like our groups are really reasonably sized. So that's great news because it sounds to me like everyone can participate who wants to. What else? I was going to say that under normal circumstances, this would use another technique, which is called 1, 2, 4 all, which you can do in Zoom. It just takes more time. You'd have one as self-reflection, then you pair up for further discussion. You have a small group of 4, and then everyone comes together. So that can be a really nice way of breaking things up, getting lots of voices involved. Some stay kind of quiet in a larger group. Well, if you're doing that 1, 2, 4 all technique, it's really going to give everybody a chance to have a voice. So we'll go through this process. In your small groups, you will add to those slides in those stages. And then we'll come back together. And for time reasons, we're going to keep our reflection probably to using the what, so what, now what questions that I'll pose in the chat. And we can do a quick reflective process on this in that way. So here once more are the questions, the prompts. I put purpose in parentheses because we've already given you that, but that is the question that you would ask under normal circumstances. And then, as we mentioned before, as I went through the graphic with the circles, these are the questions that you use in the following steps. So I noticed that a couple things popped up in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I will put the link to this Google slide deck into the chat after I stop sharing, and then take a look and see if there's any questions that I can answer before we go into the breakout rooms in about 2 minutes. Okay, so Zoe wanted to know if we could say a little bit more about each of the topics. Would that be the breakout room topics, perhaps? Yes. Okay. I would like to turn that back over to Steph then, if that's okay, for just a quick summary of each of those topics.
Sure. Don't have them right in front of me. What number 1 is food security, is that right? So people that might be interested in that topic area would be food banks, Meals on Wheels, EBT, SNAP programs. So anybody that's addressing giving, I won't say giving food, but providing food to folks that need it, making sure that people are fed in the community. And then number 2, where am I? Oh, thank you. Accessing markets. So that's really retail, wholesale, could be food stands, farmers markets. So if that's your interest area, you'd want to jump into that one. Getting started in farming. Number 3 is land access and access to capital and infrastructure for farmers. And then number 4 is education. So helping could be education in the schools, or upper level, or it could even be just master gardeners, or just if you are interested in helping get the word out about eating healthy local food. And that's it.
Thank you. Well, with that, then our facilitators all have been briefed on the process as well. So I think it's 12 o'clock, and if we can go ahead and go to the breakout rooms, and then we'll just help you keep on track with time and sending those prompts for the next steps. Okay, well then let's start back up. So I was able to drop into every breakout room just now, and thought it was a really good sign that I couldn't and didn't need to get a word in edgewise. I didn't have anything to add, but I heard a lot of really good conversation and saw slides filling up so much that there was reformatting taking place wildly. So I'm really excited to see that, and I hope that this is a tool that will continue to be useful for you, and maybe you'll find other tools as you explore what's out there. To do a quick reflection now and kind of next steps and just try out another one of these methods, I would invite you to use the chat function to respond to some prompts. And Kate's going to send those prompts starting with the first one, which is what? What did you notice? Facts and observations. Just what popped out to you? And you can go ahead and just add your thoughts to the chat, and we should have a nice kind of cascading reflection before we do the next question. I'll just keep an eye on the flow, and when that gets a little bit slower, then we'll send out the next question for our reflection. So what did you notice about this process, maybe? So help break it up into bite-sized pieces. We need to be listening well to all the players and everyone involved. There's a shortage of capacity across organizations and individuals as a major barrier to collecting information as well as responding. It's important to hear as many voices in the room and share feedback. White supremacy dominates in food security systems. not too much about how to produce the local food, multiple perspectives, all ending at similar compatible solutions and next steps. We're using a panoply of food access, market access, land access initiatives to band-aid big problems like poverty in our county. The passion and love folks have for change. We all have unique perspectives, often informed by the specific type of work we do or areas we are focused on. How thoughts, hopes can become tangible results. Give it a couple more seconds, and I think then we'll be ready for our second prompt, Kate. Great. So what? And some of this might have already come up in the what. That's okay. What would you add to this? Why is this important? Why is what you noticed important, or why is what emerged important? And what patterns or conclusions are you starting to see? Another way of asking this questions is, what hypotheses have you got now after this conversation? Land access is an issue in our county and beyond. Here's another one. We show who is valued through who we allocate resources to. It's great to have some of our commissioners here asking questions about how they can help remove regulatory barriers. We need to reframe the declaration that, quote, local food is expensive, end quote. A thank you to Anna. Everyone should have equitable access to healthy, nourishing food, and we need to address systemic barriers that prevent this and think about upstream approaches to ending poverty. The conversation is changing and beginning to ask more direct and focused questions. Everyone has the right to clean water, good, healthy food, advocacy for better wages, relationship building. Beginning farmers need a coalition of various support, government, private, nonprofit. Okay, I think based on the kind of the flow of this, oh, there's a couple more. We need to work together as a community to redistribute wealth and make land access cost-free for those who are not able to afford it based on systematic systems. Remove stigmas. We need new crops. Kate, I think we're ready. Need to question white-dominated definitions of what is healthy food. I think we're ready for that last prompt. Now what? What actions make sense? You're already there in your reflections. We need more farmers. Get more specific about what this looks like. What does equitable food access actually look like? Kelp farming. Educate part-timers and tourists. Now what? Now what actions? Part of accessing nutritious food is time for preparation. What can we do to make healthy, prepared, or partially prepared food available to working people? Land access models with private and public lands. And how can we ensure it is food they want and need? Advocate at the state and federal level for better and more local use of funds. Value the labor offered at all parts of the food chain from seed to fork. We need people coming from different backgrounds, ages, positionalities to grow in ways that are relevant to their background and heritage, as well as public spaces where we can learn from each other and expand our relationships. Community farms that have weekly meals at a community kitchen, outreach campaign to share out to the community about food access, systemic issues, and sustained funding. Support the farmers so they have the capability to grow enough to share. Inviting people to discussions they have been excluded from, parentheses, undocumented, marginalized. We've got agreement with Alexis. Infrastructure that supports preparation, preservation, and storage. A little bit of a pause there. So I'm going to say that my understanding is we'll be able to save this chat, right, Kate? And so we can document this what, so what, now what process that you've gone through. We've got another comment. Farmer training in concert with land access on public lands, an agreement for Christine's comment. Well, it's 12:39. I know we have an end time of 12:45. I was planning on handing it back over to Steph at about 12:40. So I would just like to say thank you so much for engaging so actively in these roundtable discussions and bringing all of your experience and expertise and resources to the table. We've got another comment here in the now what's support farmers so they can make a living wage. And just feel free to keep adding to that as long as this meeting is still going, to that chat. So in that Google slide deck that you have access to, that I think we could probably resend the link to, but if not, I can just add it to the chat once more. You can draw on those, you can go back to the ideas gathered there. There's a direct link to Liberating Structures if you'd like to explore this facilitation method any further. And happy to answer any questions and turn it back over to Steph for any final words.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you, Wendy. And I don't have much to say other than I really appreciate everybody taking this time on Sunday to participate in the Egg Summit. And I believe there will be a evaluation that will be sent out. And if you could please fill that out, it really helps us in planning and just knowing if, this is a new format for us, and it'd be helpful to have some feedback on that. And I don't know if anybody wants the slides. Kate, can you tell me, like if I were to provide you the PowerPoint, would that be available for folks?
Yep, send that out in a follow-up email with the recording and link to the slide deck, whatever you want.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you. And a special thanks to all of our present panelists and the people who helped put this together. A lot of work went into it. So thank you all so much. All right. Have a great day.
And thank you, Steph.